When EA pulled microtransactions from Battlefront 2 on the 11th hour leading up to the game's launch, just about everyone was surprised. It sort of came out of nowhere, and EA tried to make it look like they were all regretful through statements like, "We have heard the concerns about potentially giving players unfair advantages, as well as, this was never our intention, sorry we didn't get this right." But the truth of it all is that EA's decision had nothing to do with a change of heart or regret over their actions. A big part of it likely had to do with the fact that the widespread outrage and the far-reaching coverage of the outrage was beginning to make a dent on the game's monetization potential. At the end of the day, that's all EA cares about, making money. It never was about listening to the players, it's always been about maximizing profit. Hell, the fact that they're still thinking about including the ability to purchase crystals in-game at a later date, despite all the unprecedented backlash, kinda proves this. But as it turns out, ultimately, it was Disney that forced EA's hand and had them remove Battlefront 2's microtransactions temporarily until they can come up with a less controversial system. We first heard rumblings of this through website VentureBeat, in their article reporting how microtransactions were taken offline, published on November 16th, a day before Battlefront 2's launch. They began by stating that EA CEO Andrew Wilson had a phone call with Walt Disney before the decision was made, which already gave us some sense of what happened behind the scenes. This was then corroborated by the Wall Street Journal in an article published on November 17th, the day of the game's launch. A basic summary of its contents was provided in a tweet by Wall Street Journal reporter Ben Frizz, who said, quote, "Bob Iger, CEO of Walt Disney, did not talk to EA CEO, but he was upset about the Star Wars Battlefront 2 microtransactions debacle, and another exec, Jimmy Pitaro, expressed Disney's displeasure to EA." Then the following day, November 18th, the Washington Post covered the Wall Street Journal's article as well, summarizing its contents as follows. On Thursday, Jimmy Pitaro, chairman of Disney's Consumer Products and Interactive Media Division, made a call to EA hours before the decision was made to pull in-game purchases. The Wall Street Journal reported that the call was to express Disney executives' unhappiness at how the outrage reflected on their marquee property. And a Disney Lucasfilm spokesman said the company supports EA's temporary decision to end the crate purchasing. There's even rumors floating around that Disney was so pissed that they went as far as to threaten EA's Star Wars exclusivity deal, but this bit hasn't officially been confirmed yet, so take it with a grain of salt, although I would definitely not be surprised if this actually happened. After all, Star Wars is Disney's golden goose, and EA has caused tangible harm to the franchise's reputation with Battlefront 2's PR disaster, which doesn't bode well for Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi, which is less than a month away from release. If I were Disney and saw the way EA was handling one of the most valuable IPs in the world, yeah, I'd be pretty pissed too. I really hope that Disney considers outsourcing Star Wars video games to other more reputable game developers in the near future, because as it stands, EA has done nothing but soil the goodwill of the gaming community. People are no longer excited when they hear about a new Star Wars game from EA, they are now worried about how EA might ruin a potentially great concept. Hell, just last month, we learned that EA was canning the awesome concept of a linear single-player, Uncharted-style adventure Star Wars game in favor of something that goes in line with EA's Games as Services initiative, which came with its fair share of bad PR, even if it wasn't widespread enough like Battlefront 2 to make EA or Disney bat an eye. Honestly, Disney should realize by now that they've entrusted their most valuable franchise to the worst video game publisher possible, one that has thus far handled their precious child with little tact or care. Regardless, a big takeaway from all this is that the gaming community has made their voices heard loud enough to catch the attention of the Disney overlords, which I think is a mighty impressive accomplishment. My hope is that this right here will also be a learning experience for Disney, a company that prides itself on family-friendly content. Hopefully they'll take a long hard look at EA's botched attempt to implement a microtransactions-imbued loot box progression system and realize what a predatory form of not-so-family-friendly gambling it is. You know, at least it's safe to expect that future EA Star Wars titles will be under Disney's microscope moving forward, which may perhaps pressure EA to steer away from egregious exploitative long-term monetization schemes like Battlefront 2's for future future titles because they don't want to cause another major incident like this again. That's just for Star Wars though. Do keep in mind that there are a bunch of other franchises out there that EA has full ownership and autonomy over, with no overlords to keep them at bay. I'm talking about game series like Need for Speed, EA Sports titles, The Sims, Battlefield, Mass Effect, Anthem, Titanfall more recently, you name it, which they're free to do with as they wish. Hell, if Disney hadn't intervened, EA would have had the audacity to ship Battlefront 2 with the previous loot box system despite the backlash. And even now, we don't really know if EA actually plans to completely get rid of the game's loot box progression system and the ability to essentially gamble your way to having a significant competitive edge. When the Washington Post asked EA if players can be guaranteed that pay-to-win mechanics have been removed from the game, EA's response was, with regard to yesterday's announcement on pulling the in-game purchases for launch, we do not have anything further to share at the moment beyond Oscar's post. So yeah, don't let your guard down and remain vigilant. Don't think for a second that EA is genuinely regretful about the way they handled everything. It was just Disney who set the foot down and said, hey, you're making Star Wars look like crap right now, fix this. If EA tries to pull this bullshit again with a Star Wars game or any other franchise, always think back to this moment, to what an impact the gaming community had on Battlefront 2, and always remember that we can make a difference. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this video and enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. All contributions will go towards helping this channel remain 100% independent and self-sustained. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!